Welcome to another episode of Storytelling in the Tropics. My name is Allison Harrison. Today's guest, very interesting gentleman from the parish of St. Thomas, Mr. Lorenzo Bogle. He's an educator, a lifelong educator. Welcome, Mr. Bogle.
Thank you very much.
All right, so let's jump right into it, sir. Tell me about the community you're from, your beginnings.
Well, I originate from the district of Norris. That is about 2.5 miles north of Yallahs.
Okay.
I spent my whole childhood life there, and left Norris for school in Kingston.
High school?
Yes, high school. It was one of those high-profile high school. I doubt it exists today.
What's the name?
The
Or
name
what
of
was
it,
the name?
Ligani High.
Ligani High.
Right. And but prior to that, I spent some time working with a custom broker,
Yes.
A.J. Barnett and Son, as a custom clerk. It wasn't really any high-profile job. Well, in my opinion, I started off, the first salary I received was 30 shillings.
Shillings?
30 shillings, £1.10. But I was so proud of it, I didn't want to spend a penny from it until my mother sees it.
I see.
So I was in that job maybe for about 2-3 years, and I saved enough to go back to school. That was when I entered Ligani High.
But before we get to that, what was the name of your basic school, or you went to school in Norris?
Oh, basic school in Norris.
Yes.
Yes, certainly. It was Mr. Gordon's basic school, and that was kept at his house, more or less. He had a little makeshift building in front that we call school, you know. And his main way of getting our attention was to put on his gramophone. He had a gramophone, you know, not the one that you could use it automatically. You had to manipulate some.
You had to wind it up.
Wind it up. You had to wind it up, you know, and then when that is finished, you have to wind again, right? And he used it for dancing, storytelling, for marching, you know, etc. That was Mr. Gordon Basic School. Then, when I left Mr. Gordon Basic School, I entered Yallahs Elementary School.
Yallahs Elementary.
Right. And I was there until I reached sixth form. And each day I had to walk at least 2.5 miles.
2.5 miles?
Yes, to get to school. And of course, in those days, you weren't allowed to reach school late. And if you're late, there would be some punishment for being late. And so we had to be early. There were a couple times I was late, and the principal would meet us at the Yallahs Bay crossing. There were 2 famous cotton trees there. I don't think they exist anymore. And then he would put us in a line straight to his office, you know, and so I would get a flogging for coming late. You know. I was at Yallahs school until I was successful in the local examination, first year local and second year local. And then I did the third year local. But as I can recall, the third year local, I didn't do it formally really. The study was basically on my own because at that time I had reached the age of 15,
I see.
and that's the time you would leave school.
Okay.
And so I did it on my own through a correspondence course from Mandeville. But I wasn't successful with the first examination, third year local examination. So then I remember I was working then, and so I saved enough money to go back to school along with what my parents could afford, and so I entered Ligani High School. They were preparing me really for senior Cambridge exam, but after I'd done 1 year there, the principal, Mr. V.G. Small, believed at that time that I was fit to take over the third year local. So I did. And I was successful. So that ends that part of my school life, really. And then I visited, I remember one evening I visited my former principal, W. Lewis, former principal of Yallahs Elementary School. And he said there was a job waiting for me at Fonthill Primary School as a pre-trained teacher. So he gave me a letter to the principal and to the chairman of his school. And I think it was a Sunday evening. I got a ride on a bike from Church Corner up to Fonthill Crossing. And when I walked the rest up, and I heard that the principal was at church up at Trinityville, so I walked the journey up to the church. But I remember church was on in earnest, so I decided to walk about in the community and renew some acquaintances. And then I went back to church finished, and the principal left, and just the chairman alone I saw there. So I had to go back to Fonthill. I was sent to Fonthill by the chairman. And I was offered a job as a pre-trained teacher to start the Monday morning. So the Monday morning I went up with my little grip. That's what I call it.
The grip. Yes.
Yes. And I was accepted, and, straight away they put me at a class. And, at that stage, it was mostly to keep the class, keep the children occupied and for them to behave themselves and all of that, the children. And then after a while, I got into the groove of teaching through training by the said principal, Reverend. He had become a pastor afterwards, Reverend E.V. Shepherd and his wife. And they taught me how to write lesson plan and all of that. So I was now teaching a class of my own. But then I remembered that there wasn't any accommodation, worthwhile accommodation, I should say, for me. And so the only place I could stay was in a little office, I call it office room.
Office room?
At the principal's cottage.
Okay.
And I don't know if the principal didn't want anything to happen to what was stored in the room, because it was a storeroom also, with books and so on, and a bed was in it. But I wasn't given a key, I remember clearly. So even now, I'm trying to figure out if the principal was trying to secure his things, or he wanted to keep me, you know, keep me at one place to prevent me roaming.
I see.
That could be it. As a young man going into a community, maybe he didn't want to have me roaming the little community.
How old were you at that time?
I was about 17, 18.
Oh, very young.
Yes. And so he kept the key. And when I go into bed, he would lock the door. And then in the morning, I would hear the key turning in the lock.
You can come out now.
And I can come out. But I enjoyed it really, you know. Then afterwards, we got a little room nearby. It was on a building that was built on stilt.
Yes.
And very high stilt, because I had to walk up the stairs to get into the room. Just a little side room.
Yes.
And many people would not have liked it, but I enjoyed it, you know. The only bed that they could have provided was one of those old-time iron bed, the single iron bed. But it was, that iron bed was going maybe for many, many years.
It's been there for a while.
For a long while.
Yes.
To get onto that bed, I had to hold the side of the bed, balance it, and make sure I get on and stay in the middle of the bed. Otherwise, it would topple over. What happened really with that bed, because it was there for a while, a long period of time, the legs were not even.
I see.
Each leg had a different length, so to speak. So if you don't balance it and just get on at the side, it's going to topple over with you. So you had to balance it with your hand and make sure when you get on, you're in the middle of it.
So it had springs? It had
Yes,
springs?
one with spring. It was a Kaya mattress bed.
Okay.
And it had the base was spring, you know. Right.
Yes. So right. So you switched accommodations now to this new place.
Right. That was where I that little room, you know, not yes. And so I enjoyed it really. Each time I remember, you know.
Is there a specific moment, a specific thing that has happened while you were there that really stands out or stood out for you?
Okay, at that school or at that place?
Well, in general. In general.
Okay. Well, if I could say this, I wonder if this should be for public viewing or consumption. But no electricity was there at the time, right? And it was a time when people, when they go to bed, they had a special pan that they use to,
Right.
you know,
Relieve themselves.
relieve themselves. But this room was sort of unique. It had, remember, it was high from the ground.
Yes.
It had a hole in the floor.
I see.
And so I didn't have a bedpan for that purpose. And so, and late at night, I didn't want to go back outside.
So you just use
I
the
put
hole.
it that way. I put it that way.
You use
So
the
that
hole.
hole in the floor was very convenient.
Okay.
Right. I was there for something, well, I helped at that school in the establishment of a scout troop. You know, that was the highlight of my stay at that school, and were able to get the scout troop officially recognized, right, and had a function for it, you know. But then I left Fonthill when I was accepted at the Caledonia Junior College. It was a 5-month training school for pre-trained teachers to help pre-trained teachers in delivering, the curriculum much better in a more professional way. So it was one of the main subject here was method of teaching, right, at Caledonia Junior College. And it so happened that while I was there, a number of things happened. Jamaica gained its independence.
What was that time? What is that?
1962.
What was that period like for you?
Well, for the independence, it was something that we're looking forward to, not knowing what it would bring with it. That is independence. But around that time, people were very peaceful. You could walk anywhere in Kingston at any time of the day or night without being molested. And so that night, the 6th of August, the whole school, Caledonia College, all the students were on King Street. And it was a huge crowd. And there wasn't any pickpocket. Nobody cried out for pickpocket or anything like that. We were just celebrating. And so we celebrated nearly for the whole night. And that was when somewhere there that the National Stadium was built. And we at Caledonia, we were allowed to go for the official opening and also for the first game that was held there, Pan American game. I remembered. And
You were there?
Yes, and we had to perform at the stadium. I think we did a song to welcome the athletes. Yes. I was trying to remember the song. I probably can't remember it.
If you remember it, we're going...
Something like Estina America. Something I can't remember.
Okay.
Yes. But I remember the stadium rain fell that day. And we were in our suit, our jacket and tie, and the rain fell. But we couldn't run for shelter.
So you had to stand in the rain.
Right, and so we were
soaked,
wet as chicken. But we sang the song, right, and did fairly well. Right, so that was Caledonia in a nutshell. I was successful, and then I went next to work at Yallahs Valley all-age school with Mr. Phillips, the principal. And I was there. One highlight there I can remember was the school put on a play, and they asked me to be one of the characters in the play. I believe I acted, it was a religious play. I acted as Samuel, and I had to anoint King David, so I had to learn Psalm 92 by heart. Yes, I remember that clearly.
So you were always into the arts, into the performing arts?
Well, yes,
You were interested in it, or they just said, okay, well, we have to do this?
I sort of like it.
Okay.
I sort of like it. And so I was at Yallahs Valley all-age school for less than a year, because there was this thing that was pushing me. I wanted to, if I'm going to stay in teaching, I wanted to know more about teaching and become more proficient.
Yes.
And so I went into Michael College after that, somewhere in 19, can't remember the year now. It could be about 1963.
63.
Somewhere there, about 1963. Yes.
And
Yes, about that.
you were how old about in 63?
63. That's from 3 and from about 23.
Okay.
Yes,
Still young.
Yes, 23. And so I was at Michael for 3 years. And a highlight at Michael College was I entered a play there too. But I can't remember the name of the play.
Was another religious play?
No, it wasn't. I can't remember the name of the play, but I entered a play there. And I was able to present my first sermon at Michael to you call it, we usually have on a Thursday, we meet in groups according to our religious leaning. So I had a leaning to Baptist, so we met as a Baptist fraternity. And at one meeting, I was asked to present the sermon, and so I remember preparing the sermon. And the night before, I remember going by Buxton Tower when everybody was in bed. And I stood up and imagined as if I was preaching to a congregation.
You were rehearsing.
Rehearsing, thank you. And went through the sermon. So that day when I was presenting the sermon, it's like I knew every word that should follow.
The other.
Right, and so I presented well. I was told that I presented as if I was really preaching. You know, so those are some highlights. At Michael, I remember we're doing art and craft, and it was coming up to exam. I don't remember which year this is, though, if it was the first or second year. It could have been the second year. And we were behind time, a number of us, with our practical work. So a group of us, maybe about 6 of us, male students, decided to go to the art room that night and to prepare to complete some of our work, which included fabric painting of curtains and sheets and so on. But then we decided we can't be there working without eating. So we decided to cook, which wasn't allowed on campus by student, much more in the art and craft room. But we bought peas, gungo peas, and we used a hot plate. But would the gungo peas cook that night? It was the toughest gungo peas we had ever seen. But we couldn't stop cooking it. It had to cook that night. And so late in the night, it cooked, and we put the rest of the things in it, and we cook rice and peas. I don't remember what meat we had, you know. But the food, the rice and peas, swelled so much that we couldn't eat it off. And yet we couldn't carry it to share with any other student.
Because you get in trouble.
Right. So whatever we could have used up, we used it up. And then we threw the rest of it outside. That was Michael College.
How long were your studies at Michael? 3 years?
3 years.
Okay.
3 years. And during this period, though, I was sort of formalizing my love life, really, which had started.
At Michael?
Yeah, a few years before that, I met this young lady on a bus which was taking us to Denby. At that time, I was still attending elementary school. So I was representing not just Yallahs Elementary School, but the parish. And she was representing not just Wilmington School, but the parish. And so we traveled on that bus to Denby for the 4-H Club achievement. Yes. And so we met that way on the bus, and then we were at Denby together, and I was bold enough to invite her out. You know, there was Denby's in nearby, and that was a famous place to go while at Denby, you know.
Denby
Denby Inn.
Denby Inn.
Inn,
Okay, okay,
yes,
okay.
for any entertainment, apart from what is taking place on Denby ground itself. And so she agreed, but I wasn't even sure if she really meant it,
Right.
you know, because she looked so formal and
No nonsense.
no nonsense type of person.
Right.
Anyhow, that evening in particular, when I was to take her out, I went to Denby's Inn first to view the place, to see what it was like and so on. And then I came back over and I went up to the dorm for her. And yes, she was there waiting. And even with her house mother too, as if her house mother was, you know, encouraging her to go out with me. And so we went to Denby's Inn. And we were dancing. In those days it was blues, and they had a type of dance that they call it Ketchy Shubi.
Ketchy Shubi.
Yes, where still a part of blues, where you would spin the lady and you let her go, and she spins around and you grab her again and you go. But in dances regularly, you know, regularly in dance hall,
Yes.
you have to be careful when you do that.
Yes.
Because when you let her go, somebody around the corner would just stretch out his hand and
grab her and continue.
And continue. And in those days, we didn't mind it. We didn't fuss over it.
Right.
We didn't quarrel or fight or anything. We just laugh and take it. So when you're doing Ketchy Shubi dance, there's a skill in it that when you let her go, you have to go around quickly.
To catch her.
To catch her. Yes. So we're doing that. Well, at Denby, we dance, and I was observing the time, although I was wearing a watch that I borrowed from somebody to go Denby. I wasn't observing it at all the time. And when we realized it was late in the night, and it was long after lights out. And we tried to hurry away from Denby's Inn, but when we get to the gate, it was locked.
Oh.
It was locked, a big, heavy, iron gate. I don't know if that gate is still there to get into Denby. And so we had to climb the gate. And so I push her up, and then she climbed, and I help her up to the top. And then I climb up, and we're on top of the gate, way up there. And then to go down now, it wasn't so easy to go down. I don't remember what was there, but some obstacle or the other. Anyhow, reached the top, I helped her, and she was able to jump down inside, and then I got down behind. And we were a bit worried now, because we say if the dorm door was locked and nobody there to open it, you know, what would we do? Because she couldn't come where I stay.
Right.
But when we reached there, you know, who was at the door waiting? The house mother.
The house mother.
Yes, I was happy for her and ready to receive her back.
So you didn't get in trouble per se?
No.
Okay.
No. And so it was. That was Denby. That was a few years before Michael. And so when I was at Michael, in my second year, I think, that same young lady came into Michael as a student. And so we were now sort of, I put it this way, formalizing, you know, but there were other girls there too.
Right.
And one or two seemed interested too.
Right.
And so you sort of, you know,
Explore.
Yes, and you're wondering if you should do eeny,
Meeny,
meeny,
miny,
miny,
mo.
mo thing. And then I don't know. There was a lecturer there, a good lecturer, R.A. Shirley. He knew everything that happened on campus. I don't know how, but he knew. And he related well with students. And he came up there one night in my room while we were there. And he said, "No, young Bogle, there's something you need to tell me. I heard two young ladies competing for you, and you know, at Michael, we are honorable people, and you need to, you know, to specify what your intention is." So he asked of the two of them which one. So I told him that the preference was for Pearline, my current wife.
And Pearline was the same girl that you went to
Denbizin.
Denbizin with.
Right, yes.
Right.
And so he was pleased with my answer, really.
Right.
And so we continued in college that way. I left a year before her, something like that. And then I went to Cedar Valley to work, Cedar Valley all-age school. And then I only spent a term there really at Cedar Valley all-age school. Something was happening there that was repugnant to me, distasteful, and, you know, not something that you'd want to get tied up in.
I see.
And I only spent a term there and went back to Fonthill where I did less than a year there as a pre-trained teacher. You know, while Pearline came out and she was at Wilmington.
Wilmington.
All right, so the correspondence continue because even before going to college, we usually write letters to and fro and so on, you know.
So you met the love of your life from from basic school.
From elementary
Elementary school.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
From elementary school.
That's
right.
impressive. That's impressive.
Yes, from elementary school.
Yes. So you're at Cedar. You left
Yes.
Cedar Valley.
Yes, to Fonthill.
To Fonthill.
But so during that time, I would visit Wilmington, and like a Sunday. And I should tell you that I walked, first time I went to Wilmington, I didn't know the way, although I belonged to St. Thomas. I walked 5 miles in the heat of the sun.
Wow.
To get to her house at McGivan in Wilmington.
Yes.
5 miles.
5
miles. Right. And so after a while, I found out that there was a shorter route that was through Hermitage, Spring Garden Hermitage.
Yes.
And you walk across and get down to Wilmington. But we usually visit each other, and, well, I used to visit more, and she would provide the best dishes, you know, that found out that I love rice and peas and chicken and this, and she prepared the best meal for me.
So is it true that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach?
Yes. Is it true? It's a fact. You know, I usually enjoy the meal, the cooking, even now. Although now I learned to even help to cook.
Right.
Yes. So it went on like that from, I was at Fonthill, but I decided that, well, I decided before leaving college that I would want to work in St. Thomas at least for a year, because I had the, I decided that I need to give my mother some financial help.
Yes.
and to help to furnish the house and so forth, you know. So I didn't want to go to anywhere that had expensive rent to pay and so on for the first year. So I did just that and help her and so forth. So after a year at Fonthill, I decided to go into Kingston to work and to study. And so I went into Kingston and got a job at a primary school named St. Jude's Primary School, a Roman Catholic
Yes.
operated school. And I was there, but I was sort of adventurous then. You know, I see other jobs advertised apart from teaching, and I applied for a job as a youth club organizer.
Okay.
And so I got a job to work with the Youth Development Agency in Clarendon. And I had a half of the parish to supervise youths, you know, visit clubs and so on and so forth. And but after I was there for a while, you know, the teaching bug hit me again, and especially after I'd bought a car and it let me down and so on. And the job I was doing in Clarendon, you have to have a car. I couldn't bother with it, and so I decided to go back in teaching. So I went to St. Mary to work at a place named Mount Wallingford.
Wallingford.
Wallingford Primary School. No, Wallingford Elementary School. And so forth and so on. So I was still corresponding with Pearline and so on and so forth. And I would visit, and now and again she would visit while there. And then in 1969, we decided, well, let us, you know, tie the knot. And so we decided to get
Married.
But before that, you know, I should tell you that she was now working at Wilmington School, which was her alma mater, you know. Yes. And so before we got married, I got a job at her school. So I left Wallingford. I got a job as principal. And so I went to Wilmington School to work. She was living on the hill, McGiven at the time. I was at the cottage, sparsely furnished. Because, you know, you don't have money to spend to do certain things that you have to do, you know. And so on, she was up there. But we decided we were going to marry in 1969, June. And so whatever money we had, we spent it
On the wedding.
on the wedding. So after we got married, June 7th, 1969.
So you recently celebrated your wedding anniversary.
Yes, certainly.
How many years now?
That's 52 years.
Wow!
52
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
So after we got married now, we both moved into the cottage. So she was
Yes.
in the cottage. And I remember for a week or two before salary came again, I don't know, that cake, the wedding cake.
Your wedding cake.
The nicest cake I've ever eaten.
The cake, was that the regular black fruit cake?
I'm not so sure. Yes, it was a black cake, fruit cake. It wasn't the liquor
She
cake.
says, I hear her voice in the back there. She said yes.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes. And it was the nicest cake. I don't know if it's because we couldn't afford anything else much then.
Because, you know, you spend up the whole of the money.
So we had cake for lunch and cake for dinner. And in those days, you never had a fridge to put the cake in to store it, you know.
Right.
So you have to use it up.
Yes, it don't last as long.
But she had some specialized skill in home economics, so she knew that she could keep it fresh by throwing wine on it.
Yes,
now
keep
and
throwing the
again
wine
and
on
so
it.
on.
Yes, yes.
So we're having cake and so on until that payday comes on again and so forth.
Yes.
And so we were there at Wilmington. At the wedding, I remember saying to, well, I asked her at the anniversary if she remember what I said. And then I reminded her that I said to um, the spectators that you see us here now. These were the exact words. You see us here now. But later on, you're going to see more than us. You're going to see some little usses.
Little usses.
Right.
Right.
Some little usses. And so we lived together to see that became a reality. So we had 4 little usses.
Usses.
Right.
How many boys, how many
1
girls?
boy.
And 3 girls.
And 3 girls. You see. But it's like a tradition in my family tree that we only have a boy and the rest girls. My grandmother had 1 boy and 4 girls, I think.
I see.
My mother had 1 boy and 4 girls. And 1 boy was me.
And 4 girls.
And 4 girls. And we had, Pearline and I, 1 boy and 3 girls.
1 boy and 3 girls.
Right, right. And so it run in the family. And all my sisters only have 1 boy each, except 1 sister who didn't have any girls.
Okay.
Just 2 boys.
Okay.
Right. So we worked at Wilmington for a while. We did well at Wilmington. You know, the children were well behaved and ambitious. You know, worked well with them. We got good results in the examinations. But after 4 years, we went into Kingston with the aim that we're going to study again.
Going back to school.
Going back to school.
Right.
But when we went into Kingston, man, we found out at that time that Kingston, the cost of living was very high in Kingston. Even to rent a house, you know, was very high. After you pay the rent, yeah, nothing much left for groceries and so on and so forth. So I didn't do much studies. While she studied, she was attending Kingston Technical in the evening doing a home economic course. But instead of studying, I got a part-time job at a school. I think it was Marvally Elementary School to teach students who were doing local examination. And those students were mostly out-of-school students, working students, and they come at night at the school, and I would teach and prepare them so that I was able to earn
Right.
something
Extra.
But then after a while, we decided to leave Kingston, and so I applied again for principal position, and I got a school at a place near Mount Herman, and we went to Mount Herman.
Which parish is Mount Herman?
That's in St. Catherine.
St. Catherine, okay.
Yes, to work. And we stayed there for a while. You know, during that period, I went to University of West Indies to do certificate in education course, and then back to Mount Herman. We had our 3rd child while we were at Mount Herman. That was Donnery. That was Donnery. I hope I'm right.
It's all right.
But we had our
The 3rd
third
one.
child here.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then we left Mount Herman and we came back to St. Thomas. And I got principal position at Trinityville Primary School.
Ah, okay.
Right. And we continued there. A lot of things happened while we were there, which maybe probably not important.
No, man, just tell a story,
You
sir.
want to say? Yes.
Yeah, tell a story.
You know, in those days as principal, you didn't get a salary that was in keeping with a principal position.
Okay.
The salary that you get was just like a trained teacher salary.
I see.
The only difference is the perk, and that was the cottage.
Okay.
The cottage was the only
Upside.
extra thing
Yes.
that you'd get as a principal, and so we got the cottage to stay. Although there was something happening that we could move into the cottage right away, but
Okay.
I leave that for a while. If
Right.
you want, I can tell you. Uh-huh.
You can say it.
Okay. Well, we're leaving St. Catherine to St. Thomas, my parish. But then there was somebody at the school that I got the principal position for who also had eyes on the principal position.
Right.
And that person was already teaching at the school
I see.
as vice principal. Mark is my good friend now,
Right.
And she wanted it. So before I move into the community, you'd go now and again into the community to get yourself in readiness.
Yes.
I heard that there was going to be a demonstration and people going to come out and demonstrate because they don't want me.
I see.
They didn't know me
Right.
up in Trintyville. They know the name Bogle, and Bogle had a strong connection to St. Thomas.
Yes.
But they didn't know me personally. And so, we decided that, well, the cottage occupied by that same person too,
You're right.
Yes.
Right.
So,
But
and,
she wasn't the principal.
No.
But she got the cottage.
Yeah, she was living in the
Oh,
cottage.
okay.
Right. And then her husband pushed her and pushed the community. I don't think it was she that much.
I see.
The husband. And so we didn't move up to Trintyville. I rented a house in my hometown, Norris. And we traveled up to that fateful morning. We traveled up to Trintyville. And we reached early. We reached from about 7 o'clock. And then after a while, I saw two Rasta-looking guys sitting under the almond tree on the school premises with two placards that were putting some finishing touch to.
Right.
And I said, well, if it's only those two, nothing
no
wrong.
problem.
No problem. But you see, at 8:30, when I rang the bell, I don't know where the people came from.
Protesting.
It was a big crowd. My little granddaughter would describe it and say it's a magnanimous crowd.
Magnanimous crowd.
I don't know where she learned the word from. Yes.
Yes.
A crowd, man. And I rang the second bell. And because I have to perform, I have a duty to
Right.
perform. And I trying to get the children to line up and so on. And people, no school, no school. And getting the children out of line, no school, no school. And we're standing up in one of the open air classroom, and somebody threw something. Not anything to hurt me.
Right. Like,
But
right.
something, I felt it in my back, really, but not to hurt me, really. I don't think in those days people have that.
Right. Inclination to be
Yes,
violent like that.
Yes, yes. But they didn't want any school.
Right.
School must be reopened with that lady
As
principal.
principal.
So we're there and we see nothing can work. I call the teachers in the staff room to have a meeting with them. And I heard my friend's husband at the cottage, because the cottage was right there, standing up on the veranda and said, don't go. Like she wasn't to come, but she had to come. She had to come because that's our meeting and we talk. And I said, something, I don't think this is the atmosphere to start school, So we are going to suspend classes and I'm going to leave and go to Ministry of Education and check with the JTA president for the parish and so on. I told them what I was going to do. and so no school. When I was coming down from Trinityville, and we reached this place they call Judy's Gate, a police vehicle was coming up, and they stopped me. One of the persons in the car was a district constable attached to Morant Bay that knew me quite well because he belonged to Wilmington.
Right.
And they stopped me and they said, I must come back. I must turn back because they're going to sit at the school because the Trinityville police couldn't do anything like that, you know.
Right.
Because they would be like in a frying pan.
Right.
Right. So Morant Bay police came up and they said, turn. But when I considered, I said, no, I wouldn't want police to come to enforce,
Right.
you know, the reopening of school.
Right.
And put me in a position. I said, no, that's not good enough. I don't want to start working that way. And so I said, no, I wouldn't come back. And I told them what I was going to do. But, you know, water was welling up in my eyes.
Right.
And I was almost crying because I didn't have to leave the school where I was, you know. Because it was a good school. I was getting good result from Mount Herman.
Right.
You know, and so forth. And so saw the principal, the chairman of the president for the JTA parish. We spoke and gave some good advice and so on. And I went into ministry and so forth and tell him what happened and so on. So school was closed for a couple of months, I think.
Wow.
Yes. And there were a lot of meetings being held, you know, at the school to get it reopened. So I had to leave Norris several times to go up there. But I said, like everything I say in private, like to the person who wanted the job, because we talk, you know,
Right.
or to the husband.
Yes.
It was in the Observer. Was it the Observer at that time? I know it wasn't the
Gleaner.
Gleaner. It was another. So it's either the Observer or another paper. Everything I said to them, the next day it was in the paper. So I said, no, I have to be careful.
Yes.
What I say to them, because they put in it that I said if I knew that a problem was going to exist at the school, I wouldn't come. And that is saying that I don't have to be there, you know.
Right.
You get what I mean? I
Right.
wouldn't come. All that was in there. Anyhow, the ministry official said that I was legally given the position because I had the qualification and the school board recommended me as principal and so on. So if they were to not reinstate, if they were to put the lady in that position, there could be a lawsuit if I had that inclination to go
Right.
that way, you know, which I hadn't really, you know. And so we had several meetings, can't get school open and so forth and so on, until the Minister of Education, I think it was Minister Eric Bell, invited some people from the PTA of Trinityville Primary and also some members of his school board and so on to a meeting in Kingston. I didn't have to attend that meeting, to a meeting in Kingston. And when they finished that meeting, it was agreed that school should reopen the Monday morning. And so the Sunday, the education officer, the senior education officer came to where I was living, the house at Norris, to tell me that school must reopen Monday morning. You know what had happened to me at that time? Chicken pox.
Sorry, the chicken pox.
pox.
Chicken pox.
And shouldn't even go to work. But the education officer said school must reopen on Monday. And so I used some cosmetics and on my face and whatever remedy I hear about. I don't remember some of the remedies now. I use all of them. So you could hardly detect anything. And I tried to stay away as much from any close-up.
Right.
You know,
right.
And so I went up and we reopened school. And TVJ, I don't remember if it was TVJ, but
JBC.
JBC came up and all of that. And we reopened school and we started. But there was no animosity. I didn't try to build any. Because, how I put it, I say maybe if I were there as vice principal, maybe I would want to be principal too.
Right.
Right? I don't know if I would go to the length to have to stir up a demonstration, but
Right.
I would have that inclination to be principal too.
Right.
So there was no animosity. We talk and so forth and so on. And she was still in the cottage and so forth. And I never want to rush her out. No. So we live at Norris and traveled how much must be 30, let me see, 12 and 14, about 30 miles or more.
Wow.
Yes, from Norris each day. And we try to be there on time, reach early. And long after that, they decided to move out because they had their own house too.
Right.
They decided to move out because their own house was rented out to somebody, so they
I
had
see.
to give the person
Time to leave.
come out. And we worked together very good at Trinityville until that said teacher went abroad to study and came back and got a job at the Teachers College in Passy Garden, Teachers College. But then she didn't stay long because her husband got sick. And she wanted to come back near to him. And she came to me to find out if I could re-employ her. And I didn't hesitate.
Right.
I didn't hesitate. It would be a cruel heart would say no after her husband was seriously sick.
Yes.
And she wanted to be near to him.
Right.
So I gave her back a job there. And we worked together until her husband passed on, and the story went on and on and on.
Right. Right. How long were you at Trinity for?
At Trinityville, I went there in 1978. And I picked up a new job in 1993. That's how many years? 80 and 20. 78, I said I went there. 78, that's 80 and 20. I was there for about 20 years.
Wow.
About 20 years, until they built a new school and built a new cottage.
Yes.
And I was the first to go in the new cottage.
Right.
And the first, along with the teachers who were there, to go into the new school.
Yes.
And so on. And I had my fourth child while we were at Trinityville. That's the boy. To
Oh, the boy is the last one.
The boy is the last one to square up the domino team.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So we're there. And then I got a job at Ministry of Education Regional Office
So
as education officer.
what is the role of an education officer?
The role of an education officer really is to promote, education of the students in the schools that he supervises. In my days of education officer work, it wasn't so much as to wheel a big stick over teachers and principal and so on. Well, in my thinking, I didn't think that was it. And so I helped to run a lot of workshops among the schools, and I take it upon myself when I visited school, not just to go there and sit in the office or just go around and sit on a bench and listen to teachers teaching. Mark, that happened, Sometimes I would take the class and teach the class and
And
demonstrate.
this is schools at all levels.
Pardon me?
Is it schools at all levels that is under your
No,
portfolio?
it was
High school.
no,
No, okay.
it was primary and all age schools.
Okay.
Primary and all age schools. I still had to do certain things with secondary schools and high schools
Okay.
because I'm in the parish, you know. Yes, but that's the role I assumed as education officer. I would listen to children read. I would teach them to read. I would use a boom box if a school has one, or if I take one, and let them read and listen to how they read, play back, and find out where they were finding the difficulties and how to correct it, and lace with the teachers to put in corrective work and so on, you know, to overcome. I'd even started a competition among schools at grade 1 to grade 3 level in St. Thomas, where we had an exchange once a year, where teachers from one school would go to the other school to examine the children in reading, you know. And I'd introduce it, you know, to promote reading.
Yes.
Right, and it went on for a while, you know, well, until I don't remember if it's after I left, whatever. But, you know, but that was my approach.
That was your approach.
And even in other activities that involve schools, like Education Week, Parents Week, etc., etc., my focus was on finding the best parent, the best female parent of the year, and the best male parent of the year. And I would bring the fathers together once a year at Morant Bay All Age School and play together as fathers, play domino, have a drink, and so on, and invite some reputable, well, people that I refer to as reputable
Right.
fathers to come and speak to them and speak to us as to the characteristics, you know, of a good father and so
Right.
on. And in those meetings, things would come out like incest. Fathers should stay far from it because, you know, incest is I think is the number one problem in St. Thomas even now, you know.
Really?
Yes. And how fathers should bring up the children. We would, you know, discuss and would get the fathers involved in the discussion too.
Right.
So that we wouldn't be pushing information at them all the time. They would be coming up with their own ideas.
Yes.
You know. And so we had that going. And even now, if I had the means to do it, because it costs,
Yes.
because I don't think ministry wasn't funding the Best as Fathers seminar are
Right.
coming together. It was basically out of my pocket.
Right.
And, you know, fathers want a drink, so I had different drinks there,
Right,
and,
right.
you know, played them, you know. And I would invite a few of the female teachers there, and
Right.
we would perform for them.
Right.
In those days, my brain was a bit younger, so
Right.
I could put a skit together on the spot very quickly.
Yes.
And even engage others and get them to know the parts right away.
Yes.
And we put on a skit and
Okay.
so forth. Yes. Things like that, you know, I would engage in. And in Parents Week, I think one of the highlights would be to meet with the mothers and mothers to be at the Morant Bay Clinic one day in Parents Week. And would provide refreshment for them. The schools would be involved. Everything wasn't coming from my pocket for that, because school would prepare this type of refreshment, the other one that type, and so on. And we refresh the parents at PTA, while we teach them something about parenting. And we use drama to present some of what we presented, which was very effective.
Right.
You see, we
Right.
did a lot of that.
Right.
So my concept of the role of an education officer probably was different from
What it probably is today.
Right.
This is more of a current question. You have left the system for many years,
Yes,
but in this time of COVID, how do you see the education system recovering?
Recovering?
Yes.
After COVID?
Yes.
It's going to be a mammoth task because with the online teaching methodology, a number of children are left out.
Yes.
It will be only children who can afford laptops and other devices that would be on. And it would be only the children who are living in certain areas where the connectivity is high.
Yes.
Wi-Fi and whatever they call it, and
Wi-Fi,
so on.
yes.
And so forth, and so on. And even with those who have the online connection, it is presenting some difficulty because, teaching online is far different from face-to-face teaching.
Yes.
Because I think in that process, some children are left behind, because it's not that the teacher going to say, find page 129, and the teacher going to wait 10 minutes or 5 minutes for all the children to be on the same page.
Right.
Right. They are going on with the teaching. And so some children are left behind in this process online teaching encounter, even though they have the devices. And so there's a gap there. So
Yes.
there's a gap with the online, a gap in the educational presentation, and a gap with the curriculum, and at that level of online teaching. And there's a much larger gap in the students who haven't got the opportunity to be online. But even then, it's going to be difficult. What I think needs to be done when the children return to school, if along the way they were promoted to a higher grade, promoted to a different school, say from primary to high,
Yes.
there should be a strong remedial and revisionary period,
Yes.
especially with the basic, in every subject area. Basic in maths, in language arts, in reading, in literature, and so on. The school should be given that opportunity to engage the students in a process of revisionary work and remedial work. They shouldn't just move on with the curriculum for the present grade. They should be allowed to revise, and get the students at the point where they can, internalize what is available in the new curriculum. I think that is very necessary. At one time we used to have a Bogle anniversary nearly every year, but I haven't heard of it for a long while now. They would come together all over the island, all over the world, and meet in Kingston and have a dinner and talk about Paul Bogle and what we are doing as Bogle descendants now and all of that. And I should tell you that when I was a teacher at Cedar Valley School, just after leaving college, I was asked to represent the Paul Bogle clan at a dinner, and must be I think there was a Stone Lane ceremony at Islington, because they said when Paul Bogle was walking to St. Catherine to meet with the governor, he used that route,
I see.
you see. And so I made up a speech. The first speech I delivered as a representative of the Paul Bogle family was at that function.
Right.
That was 1966,
66.
just when I left college.
Okay.
So I don't know if
The direct link, but you know that
Yes.
there is a link.
there's a link. I probably heard of the link, but after so many years, and I'm not dwelling on it
Right,
really.
right.
know.
It just kind of leaves
Yeah,
you.
but my son would probably have some document. Maybe he would find it even now too. Every now and again, he used to go on the computer and go back in time.
Yes. And try and trace it.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But it's a fact that we are from the same family. And there are some people, I should tell you, by the name of Bogie,
Bogie.
B-O-G-I-E. They are from the Paul Bogle clan to present to so as to avoid any reprisal from the Morant Bay Rebellion. They turned the L
Bogle
into I and call himself Bogie.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
And I think there was another group too, right? But some people actually try to change their names.
To distance themselves from the...
Pardon me?
To distance themselves from the controversy.
Right. Because, according to the history that was presented to us in our early school life, Paul Bogle was presented as not as a hero, but as more or less as a criminal.
Really?
Yes, in that history. That what was presented, it was only coming towards independence.
This was pre-independence?
Yeah, pre-independence.
Okay.
People had it, some people. History presented it to some of us that way, that he was,
a criminal?
Yes. He wasn't a good person. When I say criminal, because he used the gun and he used the machete on that fateful day. Yes. Because it wasn't until in 1960, no, much later than 1962, I think, that his body, well, I hope it was the right body, was exhumed at Morant Bay Courthouse, because they were all buried behind the courthouse area.
Right.
So it was only coming towards independence, I don't remember the exact time, or after independence, that after he was declared a hero, that his body was removed to, the remains of his body was removed to Hero Circle. When people were thinking of him now in a different light.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Bogle, for taking the time out of your day to sit and speak with me. I learned a lot, and I'm sure the listeners will find your story enlightening and lighthearted and inspirational as well for their own relationships to try and make it to 52 years of union.
I hope so.
This has been another episode of Storytelling in the Tropics. My name is Allison Harrison. My guest today, Mr. Lorenzo Bogle, man of St. Thomas. Thank you very much again, sir.
And I want to thank you most heartedly for allowing me to be engaged in this way. So I thank both of you very much. And I congratulate you as young people for being people with vision at this stage, because what you're engaged in is something that will live for generation to see.
Yes.
whether they're going to see it in film or they're going to
Okay.
read about it.
Or audio, right? Or just audio.
Right, yes.
So.
But this is something that will do well for young people. As a matter of fact, I like when young people, I'm going to use a word, show off themselves. I don't mean to boast, but I like when young people show off themselves because this is how the other young people can say, my goodness, they have achieved it. So
I can do it.
can do it.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I like when they show off. You see.
So
So thank you very, very much. And I know all your parents.
Yes.
So give them my regards. I haven't seen your mommy for years.
Long
Well,
time.
I can't see people
Really?
for some years.
Right.
But they sometimes recognize me, and I don't go out as often. Are you up to? Before COVID, I would take my umbrella, because I used to go around with an umbrella, and I use the umbrella as a walking stick and as
Okay.
to cover me from the elements too.
Right.
And I would go to Morant Bay. Some people say, what you doing in Morant Bay? You should stay home. And I said, stay home.
Right.
Right. So I used to go about COVID on my own. Even now, if they allow me, I wouldn't probably go on my own to Kingston, though. But even when my eyes were getting
Right.
weaker, yes, I would take bus and go to town.
Okay.
But like Morant Bay, that I know so well,
Yes.
I can manage Morant Bay.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
I sort of have that spirit of, adventure too.
Yes.
And I like to be independent.
Yes. And that should never go away, sir.
Yes,
You should
yes,
always
yes.
try and,
Right.
go on your adventures. But thank you again, sir.
So thank you very much. And
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, another episode of Storytelling in the Tropics. My name is Allison Harrison. Until next time, peace, love, and unity all the time. Blessings.